Good afternoon. I'm Doug Loud, speaking for O&M Partners, and I want to welcome everyone to this afternoon's Ceylon Graphite Town Hall webinar. Just so you know, Ceylon Graphite trades under the symbol CYL on the TSXV and CYLYF over the counter. For those of you who are new to these broadcasts, 7 years ago in 2014, O&M recognized a sea change in non-deal investment marketing and information. Suddenly, information was way more available to whole new generations of investors who weren't ordinarily found in the key financial centers. These investors were receiving information at home that used to be geared and available to professional investors. So O&M developed a digital approach to solve this problem and get information out to the investors. Today, after the presentation, there's going to be a Q&A session. The questions in the Q&A session are for everyone. This kind of broadcast can actually answer questions you didn't even know to ask. I know that happens to me all the time. The questions can easily be asked by going to the question portal of the GoToWebinar or by emailing us. Now, for any questions that remain unanswered at the end of the call, we will follow up in a timely manner. For those of you who've dialed in just with your phone, the only way you can hear the pre-recorded introductory presentation is with your computer speakers, unfortunately. So if that's not possible, you will be able to hear the main presentation after 5 or 6, 7 minutes. So please stay tuned. Today, our introductory speaker for Ceylon Graphite will be Sasha Jacob, the chairman and CEO of Jacob Capital Management. Sasha is the chairman and CEO of Jacob Capital Management, which is a merchant bank focused on renewable power and infrastructure sectors. Sasha brings over 20 years of experience in the power sector, including founding and leading the power and infrastructure practice at a leading Canadian investment bank, as well as several years in senior political positions with the Ontario Minister of Energy. In fact, he was the first investment banker to focus on renewable energy in Canada and has managed over 100 transactions in the renewable sector. These are valued at more than $8 billion. Sasha has been recognized by the Institutional Investor as one of the 5 most influential emerging players in renewable energy globally. Sasha holds a BA from Bishop's University and an MBA from Sir Wilfrid Laurier University and a GP LLM from the University of Toronto. He's also the recipient of Laurier's MBA Alumni 2009 Outstanding Executive Leadership Award and the Bishop's University Top 10. He's also served on the boards of a number of charitable organizations, interestingly, including being the vice chair of the World Wildlife Fund and current chair of the Board of Nature United, which is the Nature Conservancy of Canada. Now, here's Sasha.
Hi, I'm Sasha Jacob. I'm the founder and strategic advisor to Ceylon Graphite. We are going to talk today a bit about the country risk for Sri Lanka based on our previous experience and the benefits of working in the country. Our history in the country has been quite extensive, beginning in 2004 when we co-founded what became the largest hydro company in the country. And that experience led to a strong relationship with the country and the ability to then now lead into securing the graphite concessions and to begin developing them. Our experience started in Sri Lanka in 2004 when we co-founded what became the largest hydro company in the country. And that company ended up also then becoming one of the largest hydro developers in Uganda. Our experience with the hydro company was very, very positive, dealing with the government, looking at bringing in capital, taking out capital was all done very, very seamlessly. We received what was called Board of Investment approval for that company, and that allows a tax holiday as well as a tax holiday on imported equipment, an overall tax holiday, and really provides for an easy way to do business. That company was very successful, and we sold the last component of that company was sold about a year and a half ago. The investment bank that I was previously running was quite active in the rare earth space and the strategic metal space, and we had heard about the anomaly of this high-grade graphite in Sri Lanka. And on our many trips there for the hydro, we began exploring, the opportunities for securing those resources. And we established a company and then received board of investment approval for that company very quickly, within weeks, which often can take much longer in many countries that have similar types of programs. And that was a really good indication of, again, how cooperative the government was going to be in helping us develop this resource. One of the things that we often look for to assess, risk in a country that we're potentially going to invest in is what's the cost of the political risk insurance. And this is a mechanism that can be arranged either commercially through commercial insurers or through groups like the World Bank. They have a product called MIGA. And what we've found is that Sri Lanka has a much lower cost of that insurance than many other countries, for example, in mining countries in Africa that have much higher insurance costs. And I think that's a very good determinant of understanding the possible country risk. If that insurance cost is low, it indicates that the commercial market, the insurance market, has analyzed and perceived that the risk for any political interference or any other disruptions is quite low. And this is what we found in Sri Lanka. The commercial and the development bank sponsored insurance costs are quite low. The others, of course, is the credit ratings and the cost of capital, particularly the cost of debt. And both you've seen some significant improvements in Sri Lanka over the last 10 years. And certainly since we began investing there with the hydro, we've seen significant reduction in both the cost of capital and improvement in their credit rating. So overall, we've had a tremendous, a very positive experience investing in the country, previously with the hydro and now with the graphite. Been a very cooperative relationship. And we also try to bring as much benefit to the country as we can. So we've done a lot of social responsible investing. Any of the communities that we've been involved in, we are extensively participating in things like providing health clinics or other facilities. In the case of the hydro, we built bridges in the towns around the facilities, provided other range of benefits, including, of course, significant employment. Our hydro company had over 250 employees. We anticipate as Ceylon Graphite grows, that we'll be having very significant employment, local employment, and beyond that, as we bring value-added production into the country as well. So beyond just mining, when we begin upgrading products and developing end products, we anticipate hiring very extensively locally, doing lots of local training, probably collaboration with the universities as well, to get those higher paying and value-added jobs.
Thank you, Sasha. That was really interesting. Today, our presenter for Ceylon Graphite is going to be Bharat Parashar, Chairman and CEO. Bharat has over 42 years of experience in Asia and the United States in a variety of fields, including mining, private equity, and investment banking. He's been Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Ceylon Graphite since 2017. He's also concurrently the Managing Partner for Clove Capital Partners, a private investment firm. Bharat has over 20 years of experience in the private equity business, investing in a variety of companies in Asia, and formerly was Chief Executive Officer for EMP Daiwa Capital Asia and Managing Director of EMP's Global Asian Private Equity business. Prior to the private equity business, he served at Citicorp and part of Salomon Brothers as a Managing Director and Head of Investment Banking for South and Southeast Asia, where he raised over $10 billion of debt and equity for regional corporations and governments. He's also Chief Executive of American Express's business in India and Head of Chemical Bank's investment business in Asia, not including Japan. Bharat has an MBM from the Asian Institute of Management and a BA with honors in economics from Delhi University in India. Now here's Bharat, and he's going to be really interesting, I can tell you that.
Thank you, Doug. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Doug said, my name is Bharat Parasha, and I'm the chairman and chief executive of Ceylon Graphite, a TSX venture board listed company. We're small, but I think we are a fascinating company, and I hope you look at us like that. We were established in 2017 and are involved in the production and exploration of graphite in Sri Lanka, and are one of the new entrants to the global producers club for graphite. And most of this, when we talk about a global producers club, we talk about ex-China, because we know a little about what goes on in China. And yes, China is the biggest producer of some type of graphite in the world. Before I start telling you about our fabulous and fascinating story, please have a look and read our standard disclosure. I'm sure you've seen many of these, so I'll move on quickly. Our mission is to be a low-cost, low-impact, global supplier of the best graphite products in the world. And you know, we look at that we're going to be transparent in our management approach, and we're going to be environmentally conscious. Our graphite is, as my cover page said, maybe the most pure graphite available on God's earth, or the highest grade graphite in situ. Our current mantra, which you should know, and it's very important given what we're doing, is that production. We need to get into production as soon as we can. Given the slowdown we had over the COVID period, we need to produce because there is a shortfall of our product, and we need to produce because we need to just grow. Why are we different? Why are we this fancy story I keep talking about? And what have we accomplished in 4 short years? In 4 short years, our K1 mine has come into production. And by the time it's fully ramped up, it'll be at 5,000 tons per annum. Our second mine, the M1, which we'll talk about a little bit too, as we go on, should be in production by the second half of the year. Our production costs are the lowest quartile in the world, I'd say today, at around $200 to $220 a ton. We should be able to achieve break-even production with small cash flows. And our graphite is at 90% carbon content in situ. Graphite, as you know, is measured in carbon and carbon content, beg your pardon. And what you see on the screen is what our product is. We bring it out of the earth in bricks or in pieces of graphite like this in all sizes, and it is eventually crushed and then sold on to users of natural graphite. And most importantly, what we do in today's world of graphite is we bring about a sourcing diversity in the energy storage supply chain. Most of the graphite in the world comes from China, but it's flake graphite. And the other large difference or big difference that we have is we take graphite straight out of the earth. We don't bring out rocks that need to go through a flotation, separation, concentration, and all the other stuff. What you see is what you get. And that is then upgraded maybe, but it's upgraded from a 90% carbon content to a 99% carbon content. Moving on, what is graphite? Graphite is an allotrope of carbon. It has it's 6 molecules of carbon in hexagonal shape. There are basically 3 types of graphite around. The most common in the world is flake graphite. There's amorphous and vein. Flake is the main one, and it is typically, like in the gold mines where you have a big piece of stone and little flakes on it. And this It's typically mined in open pit mines, which I'm sure most of you know if you have any idea of mining, which is basically a bulldozer or other earth moving equipment picking up huge pieces of the earth and then taking it through, as I mentioned earlier, crushing, flotation, separation, etc. Vein graphite is very different. It's like the vein in your arm, and it's basically liquid carbon that came from the core of the earth up to the surface millions of years ago. This is only available in Sri Lanka, and the big difference that we have from the rest of the world in Sri Lanka is that we only have underground mining. So there is a minimal impact on the environment. Did you know that Sri Lanka was the biggest producer of graphite, excuse me, or the largest producer of graphite in the world before the Second World War, but that's obviously changed now. What has not changed though is that Sri Lankan graphite still has the highest grade. The reason there was such a change in the production dynamics is the British, who controlled most of the production, went to fight the Second World War, and the price of graphite basically went down the tube. And so, given the state of the world after the Second World War, I think mining for graphite was of low importance. Graphite has lots of uses, as seen on the slide. The best known use is, no, it's not the pencil, but it is as a conductor of heat and electricity. Currently, the most exciting and fastest growing use of this product and what is driving demand is energy storage, better known as batteries, lithium-ion batteries, electric ion fuel cells, and energy storage fuel cells. We refer to graphite in our side of the business as the new oil. Global demand for graphite is currently around, I'd say, 800,000 tons to a million. I'm talking about natural graphite right now. And of this, about 200,000 tons per annum is driven by electric vehicles. As you can see, there are lots of uses of the product, but what is going to drive it over the next couple of years, the demand for this product, is the electric vehicles. And people estimate, and we listen to what Benchmark Minerals says a lot, and these are the sort of gurus in the sector. They say and forecast that EVs will account for about 3 million tons per annum in 2030 in a 4 million tons per annum market. My personal view is that this is going to be much larger, because we're only focusing right now on electronics and a bit of EVs. But once the energy storage business comes into play, the dynamics of this business are going to change quite rapidly. There's going to be a large, as you can see from this slide, a large and growing natural graphite deficit in the world. If this goes as per what people forecast, natural graphite can only be supplemented by synthetic graphite. Synthetic graphite is a byproduct of petroleum and about 3 times the price of natural graphite in the same basic form, which is 99.99% carbon. Historically, before COVID, upgraded, expanded natural graphite was trading at around 5,000 tons $5,000 per ton, whereas synthetic was around $16,000 per ton. This has changed a bit, but I can see it all going back to that once business gets back to normal. The world is going through an exciting generational change, and as energy decarbonizes away from fossil fuels to renewable energy, and everybody talks about renewable energy, the solar, tidal, wind, everything. For it to be successful, the big missing factor right now is storage. And for storage to be around, you need graphite. Why? Because as this battery model shows, graphite is a part of the anode, and anode is basically an anode and a cathode are what is essential in current technology for any kind of energy storage equipment. Elon Musk, one of the big pioneers of commercial renewable energy, and known to most of us as Tesla for his space products, has said that these cells of ours should be called nickel graphite because the cathode is primarily nickel and the anode side is graphite with silicon oxide. And the silicon oxide is what gives the battery the oomph. And there's a bit of lithium in there, and the lithium is like, we sprinkle salt on our salad. So graphite, anode, graphite, battery. That's how we look at it in today's world. Another example which I'd like to just leave out here for you to look at very quickly is that there are hundreds of these battery mega factories around right now, and in 1 year, one of these or they're called gigafactories now, a 30 gigawatt factory uses about 33 tons of refined graphite a year. So if you look at that in terms of raw graphite, that's about 45,000 tons of 90-95% graphite. So there's a lot of usage and need for the natural graphite. Oh, I'm not so good at this. Did you know that a Tesla carries about 71 kilos of graphite in it in different forms in its batteries? And, a Volkswagen Golf, obviously much smaller car, has about 26. But the demand for these vehicles, as you know, is skyrocketing. And we think that that'll just add up, and all the things I talked about are going to have a similar change. The company itself has a strong management team. You heard from Doug about Sasha Jacob and my backgrounds. We've got Mr. Anuka Souza, who works with us in Sri Lanka and sort of manages with me the day-to-day running of the business. We've recently hired Doctors Siva and Malika Bond as technical, our chief scientific executive and the technical director. This was the big missing part in our business. We've now filled that. Collectively, they have filed over 30 patents. They bring extensive experience in product development for graphite and graphene applications. We aim to capitalize on their collective technical expertise and innovative ability to advance the development and commercialization, and I stress commercialization, of new technologies for graphite. A lot has been said and talked about in terms of graphene, but graphene has not really been commercially produced. We have it as GRO, which is graphene oxide, or RGO, and that is good. It does improve products, but it isn't real graphene. We've had a long experience in Sri Lanka, as Sasha said, and we hired a lot of locals. Dr. Ranjit Premsiri, our chief geologist, is a good example. And all our staff, all our other geologists and mining engineers and staff, obviously, are all locals. We do bring in foreign experts where necessary, but most of our people are all Sri Lankans. If you look at this map, it shows you our extensive land package. We've got about 30,000 acres of land spread out over the middle to the lower southern part of Sri Lanka. This is in the form of grids. Each grid is 1 square kilometer and is given out as a concession by the regulator, who is the GSMB, or the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau of the government of Sri Lanka. Our mines are on a geological plate, which is known as the Vani plate, and it's basically the same geological formation as the 2 existing mines in Sri Lanka. There are only really 3 producing mines, though 4 existing mines for graphite in Sri Lanka. 2 of them are Kahataga and Bogala. I forget the names. The important thing to know about them is they've been in existence for 150 years. And they are still in production and down to about 2,200 feet. I think Bogla is a little less. Kahataga definitely down to 2,200 feet. And I've been down there to the bottom of the mine, 1,000 feet in a monkey cage. And then after that, on the little boxes that take miners down to the bottom. I think I jumped up a bit here. What I'd also like to talk to you about is one of the key advantages that we have had in Sri Lanka in selecting our sort of spots and grids, which we chose most of from the GSMB, and that was done pretty technically. And our hypothesis was simply that Sri Lanka had a lot of mines in the late 1800s, early 1900s, but the difference is that all the mining was done in the overburden. And by mining in the overburden, it's mining in the mud. When the vein got to the rock, rarely did anybody go into the rock. There were a few people who went into the rock, but that was very expensive. So what we did is we asked the GSMB to show us a map, which they had, of all previous production, and we picked up 95% of our grids where there had been previous production before. And I think our hypothesis has been proven pretty correct so far with our K1 and M1 sites. These were 2 sites where there had been historical production, and now we've proven that there is large deposits where we are working. Just some very quick numbers here. We started in 2017. We announced commercial production in late 2019. Yes, it got slowed down in 2020 before COVID, and we are pretty much back at where we left off at that stage. We are hoping to get M1 in commercial production by about May, June of this year, and a couple of other sites on stream later in 2022. We think that we'll be able to do a lot more and have 10 sites in production by 2024. What is different for us? We don't have large mines like people like Syrah and others. Each mine for us costs $2 to $2.5 million and does about 5,000 tons per annum when fully on stream. Our estimated cost of production, as I mentioned earlier, about $200 to $220 per ton, and our minimum lifespan for our mines is at least 50 years, and that's been shown by Kahataga and Bogla, and we think maybe it's going to be much more than that. Here are some pictures of our K1 site. The picture on the far left is the head of the shaft. You see the shaft, you see the beautiful graphite vein there, and we show some pictures of our first production, and some of my colleagues down there in the shaft, not in the shaft, that's in one of the tunnels off the shaft. The main shaft goes down about 160 feet, and other tunnels are at around 200 to 220 feet. Our other mine, the M1, which is some geologists say may be better than K1, we've gone down about 90 feet, and you can see the size of the vein. I'm a big guy. I have a wingspan of 6.5 feet, and that's the size of the vein. This size of vein have not been seen. Even at Kahataga, the largest vein was only 3.5, 4 feet, I think. So it shows you where we are. We are hoping once we get our license at M1 that we'll be able to build an adit into the side of the hill and go straight into the graphite reservoir. This gives you a bit of competition data. If you look at us compared to all our competitors who are in the business and who are listed companies, there's one new guy who's come up who I don't have down here called Tirupati Graphite, who's from East Africa too, and is listed on the London Edge Exchange. But compared to all of them, we have the highest grade graphite in terms of carbon content. We have so far the lowest capex, and we've got the lowest cost of production. That's something that few people can talk about like us. The cost. What does graphite sell for today? Graphite sells in different forms, but the biggest market in the world is all for flake graphite, and the best flake graphite sells for about $1,400 a ton. Sri Lankan graphite, though, sells for a premium on this. Obviously, we are a little more, we have a little more purity than the flake graphite, but we sell for around $2,000, $2,300 a ton. As a matter of fact, the two sales that we've had as a company, unfortunately, they've only been small sales of a ton each so far, were much higher than $2,500 a ton. But people love our graphite. One of the biggest demands and conversations that I'm having right now are from Chinese graphite producers. They want to buy as much as we can produce and just mix it with their own graphite to improve the quality of their product. Here are some numbers that will just show you where we are. By the end of this year, yes, we are in 2021, we should have about, we should have produced about 1,000 tons of the product, and by in 10 years time, we should be producing on a consistent basis over 50,000 tons of graphite. As you'll see, the company is a cash generator, and we'll generate a lot of cash over the next couple of years. Now, I want you to stop for a second there and say, and just keep this in mind, we are not going to be sellers of natural graphite in the long term. We're going to produce it, but we've got to upgrade this stuff. So we've got to get it to 999 to get used by the battery industry. But to do that, we need money. So our basic intention is, and everything I'm talking about here on this page is natural graphite only. But by about the 4th or the 5th year, latest, we should be well into a processing business. Obviously, Doctors Bohm, Siva, and Malaika will help us. And we've also been talking to other sellers of upgrading technology. And the one thing we've decided, and I think Sasha mentioned that in his introduction to, was we are not going to use the typical Chinese and European way of refining graphite, which is the use of hydrofluoric acid. We are not going to do that because it has too much impact. Acid leaching has too much impact on the environment. We are looking at thermal upgrading, which will really using maybe either a fluoride or a chlorine bed and hopefully that technology, which is available all over the world now, we will bring to bear either at market, where the market end product market is, or in Sri Lanka. But in Sri Lanka, definitely we're going to use the first stage of upgrading, which is to take us to the next level of purity than what we have right now. We are listed on the TSXV, as I said earlier. Our shares today were trading at around 31.5 cents. We have 122 million shares out there, so we have a market capitalization of around $40 million. I anticipate that as the markets move and Mr. Biden's coming in and the United States having declared graphite as a critical mineral, we will see our share price go up quite substantially. Two of our competitors' share prices have jumped much quicker than ours, but they are not producing, and we are. That's the difference we bring to the market. We are a producer, unlike others. As we look at the sexy part of the demand curve here, it's being driven by electronics. The present will be EVs, and the future will be energy storage applications. I'm relatively old, I'm 65 years old, but I say this with full confidence that in my lifetime, every house, at least in the United States, will have some sort of renewable energy provider of the energy, either it's solar or wind, and every house will have a storage unit which will be the size, I think, of a shoebox. And that will be able to give you electricity and serve your electricity and power needs for a whole month. And this is the way of the future, and I definitely see that happening in a big way. Just to recap, we are well positioned to meet the market and provide shareholder value. We have the highest grade natural graphite in the world. Graphite is the new oil. We are the cheapest and quickest to market. We build a mine in about 2 years for $2.5 million. Our average cost of production at current depth is $200 to $220 a ton. We've had our product certified by Dorfner in Germany and American Energy Technologies in the US. There's a huge demand for natural graphite in terms of energy storage and electric vehicles. And of course, we are very well positioned to sell to the big battery manufacturing markets in the Far East and to the North American West Coast. Thank you for listening to my monologue here. I'd be delighted to answer any questions you may have.
That was great, Bharat. Really interesting. Two quick questions from me. Could you address, as I understand, you have the 121 positions, are each of those capable of becoming a mine? And what about all the permitting? What is the permitting environment in Sri Lanka?
Yes, each one of those could theoretically be a mine. And if I had $100 million, I would develop it. But in my life, given reality in my lifetime and my life cycle, I think it'll have to be somebody else who develops it. The permitting in Sri Lanka can at times be a little slow. So when you start off, you get a concession granted to you by the GSMB. You then get what is called an exploration license, and you can do exploration. Exploration allows you to do some drilling, and in our case, we get licenses that allow us to dig up a shaft. When I say dig out a shaft, in most sites, I don't say all sites, in most sites, if you do enough homework there, you can see old shafts. So you can either decide to refurbish the old shafts or just dig down to see till you reach a vein. If you reach a vein, as we did in K1, or several veins as we did in K1, we then put in first a wooden shaft and then a concrete shaft. In in M1, we did the same thing. it takes a bit of time. The next level of license is your industrial mining license. And the industrial mining license can take about 4 months to get. 12 to 14 different government departments have to approve it, starting with archaeology and going all the way up to defense, because you need permits for some sort of explosives. We've done all that at K1. Each site needs its own license. And the big thing that you need to get, along with the mining license, is approval from the CEA, which is the Central Environmental Agency of the government of Sri Lanka, who asked us for a report which was some 250, 300 pages long. And we went into every aspect of impact on the local community, on the local flora and fauna. And one of the beauties of our mine, if you come and see it, is if you just look at it from the road or the top of the hill, it'll look like a rubber plantation, but everything is going on underground.
That's great, but just to understand, it's 3 or 4 months, not 3 or 4 years.
Oh no, it was 3 or 4 years. I just wouldn't be. We've only been in operation 4 years now. We've got one mining license, and hopefully another one in another 6 months.
Oh, okay, great.
Doug, you're on mute.
Is Chris Berry still out there? Okay, how about Jeffrey?
See him.
Okay, how about Jeffrey Masseri? Huh, I'm striking out. Okay,
Well,
Calvin Murray.
Hi, Jeff Masseri is here.
Ah, the late Mr. Masseri.
That's correct. Okay. I have a couple of questions that I'd like to understand a little bit. Your basically your graphite is rock graphite, right? It's hard rock graphite.
It's crystalline, yes, like a rock, not like a rock. It is in the form of a rock, you can say, yes.
Because in my experience, saprolitic graphite is much cheaper to produce than hard rock graphite. So how do you manage to produce it so cheaply?
No, so if you do flake graphite, which is small specks on pieces of rock, you first got to break the rock, then you got to separate the rock from the graphite through a separation process and a flotation process. Then you got to dispose of the rock, then you got to bring it up. It's about 10 to 30% carbon content. You then have to concentrate it together and then upgrade it. The beauty of our system is when we go into the mines and we actually, if we just use a manual jackhammer, we can physically put the jackhammer rods into the graphite and break out pieces of the graphite. This graphite, the more crystalline it is, the easier it is for it to crumble in your hand. It is not like quartzite or other hard rock. It is, as I said, crystalline and more. Yes, it is hard. I can't crush it, but I'll be able to crush it with an easy crusher and bring it down to powder form and then put it in plastic bags and sell it.
Okay, thank you. How much cash do you have on the balance sheet?
Right now we have about $3 million.
And what is your cash burn at the moment?
On a direct cost basis, about $80,000.
80,000. Okay, thank you. So you're not in immediate need of financing. And when would you become cash flow positive?
We hope, and let me just try and bring this slide back up here to show you. We think we'll be cash flow positive in second from by the end of this year. We'll have on a gross basis we'll be cash flow positive, and by next year on a total operating basis.
That sounds wonderful. And so you'll have about 3 mines in production by year 3.
No, by year 3 we'll have about 5 mines in production.
Oh, that many. Okay, that's wonderful.
So
well, thank you very much.
I'll tell you, our next, we've got 2 mines, beg your pardon, excuse me, K1 and M1 already out there, and H1 is, we've started drilling. We've done some drilling, and we're about to start our next drilling program, which we'll announce shortly. And we have another site not too far away on the same geological plate,
Yes.
which already has 100 feet deep shafts, which I've been down with a rope, and you can see the veins. So the work there is obviously going to be some some drilling work to get a directional idea of which way the veins are going, and then start building up the shaft. So we think that by the end of 2022, we should have at least 4 mines that we're working on.
Thank you very much.
How about Calvin Horry? Is he here today?
I don't have any questions, thanks.
How about Doug Smith? Doug Smith, do you have any questions today?
No, I don't have any questions, thanks.
Mr. Rose, do you have any questions today? Robert Hermanos, do you have any questions today? Scott, do we have anybody from the audience asking questions?
Yes, we do, in fact. Let me ask some of them now. First question is, what is the typical production from each site?
Each site, as I explained earlier, it will be, by the time it's fully on stream and ramped up, will be about 5,000 tons per annum from each site. So when we say we'll be at 50,000 tons by year 7, that means we'll have 10 sites operating to full capacity.
And the following question from the same person is the 50-year mine life you mentioned for each of the 10 sites?
Yeah, that would be an estimation, simply based on the fact that the 2 big mines that are in existence and operating have been in operation for 150 years. And whilst we've got some geological data and geologists like petroleum engineers or other mineral geologists come out with estimated reserves, that's what they're saying. But having been down into the bottom of the earth in some of these mines, when you get there, you just see that this stuff is sort of endless, and it's just going on and on and on. So I've been down at our mines, and I think they'll all last, at least the 2 I've been to will last for at least 50 years each. Hopefully the others will all last too for that much. But when we do financial calculations, we do them out for 10 years, basically.
Excellent, thank you. Next question, how much cash have you produced in the last year, knowing that you have done some sales?
As I mentioned, we've only sold 2 tons.
2 tons.
So 2 tons is not much, $5,000, $6,000. But we are hoping that over the next couple of months, we'll stockpile a bit of graphite and then start selling some raw graphite either into Japan or into China.
Great. And the next question
raw
is,
we're only going to be selling a little bit of raw graphite.
Excellent, thank you. And the next question is, will upgrading be done in Sri Lanka or outside?
That's the million-dollar question. And what type of upgrading is the next thing? So if we decide to go, we'll have to do some upgrading in Sri Lanka to meet the Sri Lankan government regulations, but it depends. Are we going to just do micronization and in Sri Lanka, and put a thermal a bed there to take away the little bit of iron ore and silicon that you have as a byproduct, or are we going to do even the spheroidization there? Difficult to say. Keep in mind, spheroidization today is a little complicated, and the people of my age in the audience will know when we were young there was a Betamax and a VHS, and the only difference in the machines was the size. Similarly, each battery manufacturer today, for some reason, has these small spheroids or small spherical pieces of graphite at different sizes and different numbers per anode. So the question becomes, who should we go with in this? And we have to make that decision. So if we go with a major player like say Panasonic or a Tesla or somebody like that, we'll most probably put up the final plant close to their production facilities. And we are sending our product for qualification to all these guys right now.
Excellent, thank you. Next question is, how much did it cost to bring K1 or M2?
K1, as I said, $2.5 million so far. At M1, we have put in about, on a direct cost basis, maybe around $450,000. On a total cost basis, maybe close to $650,000. But obviously, we need to put in another $1 million or so in M1.
Thank you. The next question is, are there any export restrictions? Can you discuss royalties, tax regime?
We have a tax holiday from when we start producing for 5 years. There are government royalties of 7%. And in Sri Lanka, when you get a concession, the concession is typically a concession for only subterranean rights. So we have agreements with the surface landowners to give them a small part of the profit too, which we average at around, let's say, 5%, but it's usually less than that. We've used 5% in our calculations.
Thank you. And the next question is, there are 75 million warrants outstanding. What is their strike price, expiry date, and who is holding them?
The warrant, most of the warrants are struck at 15 cents. Their expiry, I think, if I'm not wrong, they're out there for 2 years or 3 years. I might be wrong on that. I don't pay attention to that. I'm sorry. And they are held by all our shareholders. Most of them were held by. We did a financing at 8.75 cents in October, and we raised $4.5 million, and that came with warrants.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Who have been your current off-takers for the first sales?
As I said, we've had marginal sales. Our off-takers, who we've sold to right now, one was a graphene company in Singapore, and the other was to a Korean battery maker's frontman. And they bought it from us. The Koreans bought it just to test our product. Very excited with it and want to buy more. But we'll be selling to the Chinese, the Koreans, and the Japanese primarily in the initial stages, because they're the closest. It's 12 days to 14 days by sea. One container is, this thing will sell by the container load, and we'll get it 25 tons at a pop. We'll be selling. And it's just literally, if I say I've got 25 tons for sale, I can have somebody offer me a price, given it's Sri Lankan, and it's at 90% plus carbon content within a short period of time.
That's a great point. Thank you. Next question. What is the constraining factor limiting the production to 5,000 tons per mine? Could you produce a higher annual amount per mine if you wanted to, or would that be uneconomical?
We could produce more. We could definitely produce more. It's not uneconomical. You'll be going deeper and deeper in. You'll need a little more capital. The mine plans that we have developed are based on ramp up within the constraints of A, our current capital, and B, without too much disruption to the environment in which we operate. If we have to increase our productivity levels to say 10,000 tons a year, we'll have to start putting in more adits into the sides of the hill for each mine. And that will cause a lot of disruption to the neighborhoods in which we operate.
Understood. Thank you. Next question. What marketing strategies are in play to bolster demand in Ceylon Graphite? What has the response been in potential suitors?
When you say demand of our product or of our stock?
Well, I think one thing is, what are you doing to market the benefit of the graphite that you have in Sri Lanka? And the next part of that is, how have potential suitors responded?
So Sri Lanka has less than 1% of the global natural graphite market right now, less than 1%. And it had 3 mines a few years ago, but one mine is in some shareholder disputes, not going nowhere. Bogula is owned by a German company, and AMG Grumful, and they basically use all what they produce for their own needs, and they're in the lubricants, primarily in the lubricants business in Germany, and they produce also these electrodes for the steel industry. The electric arc furnaces, the anode there is pure graphite. So that is one business. The second one is Kahataga, and they are owned by the government. And sometimes they produce, sometimes they don't produce. And the reason I'm giving you the story is simply to say that there is no regular supply of the product. So when we have talked to anybody to sell, they say, as long as you can give us a regular supply, we'll buy. So our process so far has been, we've talked to the big battery manufacturers and have sent product for testing. We've talked to some of the major Chinese wholesalers of the product who want to buy our product to generally uplift their own grade. Their grade is much lower, so before it's sent for processing to 999, after concentration, they want to mix our graphite in there, upgrade their graphite general base, so lower their cost of upgrading. So we've talked to 30, 40 different buyers. We've talked to the major automotive companies. We've talked to the OEM manufacturers. Everyone is just waiting for the product to come out in sizable quantity. And that's why I say our mantra is production, production, production. Right?
Excellent. Thank you. A couple more questions. How critical is graphite to lithium-ion batteries? We hear so much about cobalt, nickel, lithium. How pivotal is graphite, and why do we not hear so much about it?
So in any battery, as I showed you, and I can show you some nice, more sexier diagrams of batteries, there are two basic parts, an anode and a cathode. Your anode is basically graphite wrapped with silicon, and the wrap of the silicon has not been perfected as yet. So when it heats up, the silicon expands. So people don't put that much silicon in it. They've got to come up with a better way to do this. But the anode is graphite. It's just that graphite hasn't been looked at as one of these so-called sexy minerals for a long time, simply because there was a lot of noise about graphite in about 206 to 210, people figured out that it's very difficult to take out of the earth. The market is mainly controlled by the Chinese. They do acid leaching and upgrading, and we can't compete with them. The next big sources of graphite were on the East African coast in Mozambique, Madagascar, and other places, and they are developing. And as your battery market increases, or energy storage, let's not call it battery, as energy storage market increases in quantum and size, you're going to have more and more demand for graphite. In today's technology, you cannot do energy storage without an anode, and your anode is all graphite. Lithium is more like salt on a salad, as just to quote Elon Musk. Cobalt is necessary, but cobalt is being replaced by other materials right now. And I wish I had this slide to show you, but the Western Hemisphere right now, mainly I'm talking about Canada and the United States, there are very little new graphite being produced here. The United States particularly has no new graphite. And everything here is coming way out of solid rock, and the costs are just humongous. All these big graphite companies are talking about producing, and they're all at feasibility study stage. They're all talking about, the numbers they're talking about are hundreds of millions. Let's look at Syrah, the big plant in Balasama in Mozambique, being done by the Australian, $600 million.
Wow.
And they're going to eventually have, yes, 100. They will have. They started off at about $100,000. They've reduced their capacity now because their costs are so high they can't match the selling price. But for me, theoretically, or for Ceylon Graphite, we could do 10 mines for 25, say $30 million, or 50,000. So we can do 100,000 tons with $60 to $70 million versus $600 million. So we're just that much cheaper.
That's a good point. Thank you. That's very clear. And I guess a follow-up question is, will graphite be critical in the future plans for batteries, or are there newer technologies? Will graphite always be necessary for the anode?
Doug talked about my background. I'm a finance man. Now I was an investment banker as a young guy. Then I went into private equity when I got a little older, and I'm now a miner. I have no clue, to be very honest with you. Some technology will come that will make graphite maybe not driven by anodes, but there is such a magnitude of uses for graphite. And one of the things that people don't talk about too much about the use of graphite is the military. Graphite is used to make the bodies of all these fancy aircraft, space capsules and everything else, because it provides the strength in the tinsel. But apart from that, it is the best lubricant and conductor of heat. So all your big mega guns, howitzer, tank, barrel, this, that, if you didn't have graphite as a lubricant, they'd explode. So I leave that to your imagination to see how much the defense industry could drive the price of this product. But having said that, they don't need 99.99% graphite.
Well, that's a good point. Thank you so much. That's all the questions we have from the audience. I'll turn it back over to you, Doug.
Okay. Bharat, as we get ready to say goodnight, is there any one thing you want us all to remember about your company and your project before you say goodnight?
Yes, thank you very much for listening to me for so long. Other than that, I'd like to just tell you that we are a unique company in a lovely, unique little country which has a tremendous natural resource. And we're able to take this natural resource out of the ground at a relatively cheap price. We're not heard about, we're not a big, we don't blow the trumpet enough, and maybe we should do that a little more. But we are at a stage in our development in which we're about to take off, and I hope a lot of you will come join us as we start this journey. And I'm sure, and I'm very, very confident that within the next few years we will be one of the major players in this business. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming, Bharat. Good night, everybody.